of you will appear on live stream. So Soul Cafe, again, is a mix of different formats, sometimes interviews, sometimes storytelling, and sometimes what we call inner fitness, which is exploring a theme. And today is going to be inner fitness and this whole idea of self-correction. Sometimes we call it checking and changing, self-correction. But before we get too much into the topic, we're going to take a moment now just for a bit of a reflection. So inviting you to be seated comfortably, and if you want to experiment with eyes open, you're welcome to do that. And I begin by becoming very aware of myself observing the outer world. There's the feeling as if my physical eyes are like windows, and I am looking out from the inside, looking out to that outer physical world. And this is something that comes so naturally to me. I don't even have to think about it. It's such a deep habit to look outwards through the physical eyes. So just taking a moment to observe myself observing, and that connection between looking out through the eyes and what happens in my mind. And you can also include listening through the ears, all the physical senses, very outward focused, what's going on in the mind as I experience the outer world through the senses. Just taking a moment to observe that. Okay. So that was an experiment for yourself, just to see what the connection is between outer world, inner world, how much I spend outside, to the point the outer world has come inside. So many of my resources are dedicated to looking outwards. That habit of looking at other people and different scenes and situations. And because so much of my time and energy is dedicated to that, there's very little left to look at the self. And when I do, it may not be with the same rigor and precision as when I look outwards. So now I'm going to turn my vision inwards. My physical eyes and senses can't look inwards. I'm going to use my inner subtle senses, my inner eye, to look into my inner world of thoughts, feelings, memories, attitudes, perceptions, perspectives, all the invisible material that's still very real. So again, taking just a minute or two to turn inwards, see what's happening in my inner world. Okay. Again, without judgment, just observing myself doing these activities, these exercises, which came easier, looking outwards, looking inwards. Was there any difference? Was it more challenging to stabilize, looking inwards than outwards, noticing all these things for myself? When it comes to quality of life, experience of life, and self-transformation, I will have to develop the art of looking inwards with increasing clarity, not with increasing cruelty, but increasing clarity. Om Shanti. So our topic is self-correction. Inner fitness is a format where we take art, discipline, a principle of physical fitness training and metaphorically extract it, if you will, and see how it applies to spiritual endeavor. And self-correction is huge in physical training if one wishes to progress. So that is what we're proposing. But before we go any further, I want to make sure that that is where you would like to go as well, because I'm very open to looking at some other topic or aspect if you choose. So let us know if you're okay with the topic of self-correction. I'm getting a nod from Nora because I can see her. Perfect from Pauline. Perfect, Pauline. That works out well. A nod from Nora. And a nod from Nora. There's a lot of onomatopoeia going on here. All right. Well, we're hoping that our other souls here are okay. I personally love this topic, and it is so critical to any path of transformation, whether physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, is I am trying to move myself to a new place. And, you know, I remember my very brief career swimming, but taking swimming lessons. So the lifeguards were really lovely, and they would inform me. They always said, anytime, you didn't even need to have a lesson, anytime they're available to correct, to help you correct your mechanics. So I took them up on it often, and I'd be in the pool, and I found it fascinating, because of course the whole idea is to correct my mechanics. And this is a physical example, correct my swim stroke. And in this case, it was front crawl. So correcting the swim stroke. So they would stand on the deck, this objective position, and they would ask you to swim, and they'd observe. And then when you got to the end of the lane, they would tell you what they saw and give a suggestion on what you need to do to correct. And I remember, and I knew there was asymmetry. I knew there was injured shoulder, so I knew it would look funky. I didn't know how funky it looked. So I got to the end of the pool, and they said, you need to pull your right arm much more out of the water. You're literally creating drag. It's dragging through. This one's fine. This one's dragging through because it lacks rotation. And in my mind, I literally looked and said, are you kidding? And I said, no, try again. So I literally thought this was how I was swimming. I'm making so much effort to get this thing out of the water. And I get to the other end of the lane, and they say, you're still dragging it. I said, are you serious? I mean, I'm almost windmilling this thing. You've got to be kidding. And I said, no, seriously, you are, it's still, can you not feel the water on your fingertips? And I was like, really? I said, yeah, try again. See if you can feel, because if you're dragging it through, you're going to feel, you know, it's not clearing the water. You're going to feel it. And so I'm sure enough. And they said, you know what, we can get the video recorder out for you if you like. This is classic what they do, because they have shared, lifeguards shared, correcting adult swimmers is the greatest challenge on the planet, because they want to change, but they're so fixed in their mechanics, and their kinesthetic feedback is highly distorted because they're so fixed in their mechanics. So they said, we can get the video recorder. So they get the video recorder and they take a film and they show it back, and sure enough, they're absolutely right. I had no idea. So this capacity, and this is a very physical example with actual tactile feedback, right? The water. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. I had no idea. That's something very clear. When it comes to spirituality, going inside and checking things like attitude, awareness, or simply thoughts, checking our own, it's incredible. We start to have these kinds of blind spots or lack of clarity. We are excellent at looking at other people and even trying to extrapolate what must be going on in their head. We are excellent at this. It fascinates me how much time we dedicate to looking at other people, their external behavior, and then extrapolating what must be going on in their head, and absolutely certain we must be right. We're very, very good at checking other people. Why are we so good at checking other people? Why are we even doing that? What's that about? Why would I dedicate this precious capacity of objective observation? Why would I spend so much time using it on anyone else but myself? What's that about?
It's more effort to take personal responsibility.
Do you really want to know? You know, it's kind of like that. I know sometimes it's like people say, tell me when I'm doing it. I said, do you really want to know what's going on? I'm like, yeah, no, I want to. Really? Because if I tell you, you may have to do something about it. So yes, there is going to be that, okay, I'm going to have to probably do something about what I observe. Any other reasons why we might find it easier or find ourselves have a higher propensity to check other people, and yes, try to change them as well? Absolutely. Why would we do that rather than apply that to ourselves?
Our inner eye is very strong.
Our inner eye isn't very strong. It's quite interesting because we think we're using our inner eye on other people.
No,
Again,
it's
we feel we feel we know what's going on in their head. We've gotten into their head, and that's a frightening image, my inner eye getting into someone else's head, but we feel we're being very insightful and empathic and all sorts of things.
It was just because I was at work and we are talking about patient charts. And
Yeah.
to me, one of those groups of charts are like yellow, lemon yellow.
Okay.
But one of the coworkers called it brown.
Okay.
So when we were doing this exercise you were asking us to observe the outside, I was suddenly thinking about that, like, wow, I wonder what things look like through her eyes.
Right.
Maybe if she looks at me, I've got 3 horns and I don't even know.
Absolutely. I meant to talk to you about that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like we don't know.
No, totally. And Tanish, thank you, has written, because we think others have a problem and not us. Actually, sometimes we even go further than that, Tanish. We think other people are the problem.
Right.
It's not just that they have a problem, but that they are the problem. And Pauline writes, if we find something wrong with other people or being critical about them, we are reflecting about ourselves. So yeah, that's getting maybe a little bit closer than the things that I'm absorbed in thinking about other people might reflect more about myself than the other person. Absolutely, that's getting a little bit closer probably to the truth. But, you know, this path of self-transformation, of self-upliftment, has anyone, for whatever little they've done, have they experienced any resistance?
Inner, outer, or off?
Oh, from anywhere, inner, outer, from anywhere. Has there been the experience of any resistance, self-sabotage in any way, if you will, when it comes to, I know we see this in physical fitness, when people embark on a journey for transformation in their fitness, they run into resistance. And the suggestion is, since it's been portrayed mythically as a battle, the odds are pretty high that there is resistance, even greater resistance when it comes to spiritual. Where's the resistance coming from? What doesn't want me to change within the self? Ego. Yes. Ego, what I had become, the image. So we use the term past and scars, but ego, top of the list. Right? I use the term Igor because it's a whole path actually of ego and friends. But so what do you think is nudging us to look at anything but ourselves? It's ego. And even when we try to look at the self, old belief system can definitely get in the way. And so now we're getting into attachments is another. And whenever we're talking about attachments, it's really fear that's stopping us from really looking at the self. So these are big ticket items. These are big, big dynamics. So a lot of compassion is needed. Kind of like, I know that's going to happen. I understand, but I'm going to carry on anyways. I'm still going to go into transformation, but knowing there's going to be this resistance, and to know that the resistance is coming from the ego attachment. So when I find myself looking at someone else, correcting them, trying to figure them out, now this voice of wisdom is like, what are you doing? What does this have to do with your own transformation? Nothing. This is just ego. Okay. So then I stop immediately. I don't keep engaging in senseless behavior. Looking at others isn't going to change myself. Yes, there might be that aspect of, that seems to affect me, this aspect of someone else. What's that telling me about myself? Absolutely. So to be really clear, that's kind of the starting point. So if I can get that far, where I've sort of, if you will, removed some of the distraction, now I'm left with looking at the self with clarity. And again, this is such a fascinating topic. You know, I remember many now decades ago, I don't quite know why this was happening because it was art school, but for some reason we were pretending in art school. Again, I'm not sure what this was, but maybe it was communications, who knows? But we were pretending to be news reporters. So we had to deliver a news event, a news report, and it would be video recorded. And the idea, I think it may have had to do with, you know, what is our perceptions? How objective are we in perceiving? It might have been in drawing class, I have no idea, but we had to deliver a news report. It was recorded, and then we listen back and watch the video. And it was an extremely illuminating, if anyone has, even to listen to a voice recording of yourself, but to look at a videotape of yourself, I think we've all done it more and more as things have gone online, but it's extremely illuminating when we look at a voice recording of ourselves. And I remember seeing the playback and I was like, what am I doing? There were so many weird, eccentric things I was doing. It was just strange. I thought, why am I saying oh so much? And why do I twitch like that? And what's going on? And I thought, who is that? It was kind of frightening, actually. Things I was completely unaware of. And it was really quite fascinating because what we're doing now, it's almost as if we're watching somebody else. My favorite experience of this was arriving at a dance class in a completely mirrored studio. So the reflections were very confusing. It was, you'd be standing somewhere and you see reflections all over the place. It was completely mirrored, all the walls. So I was waiting for class and I looked over to a mirror and I found I was looking at someone else in the class, their back. And I thought, wow, I don't know if I've seen that person in this class before, because it was a dance class that we all went to regularly. So I don't think I've seen that person before. I'm looking at their back. And they said, it's so strange because they seem to dress a lot like I dress, like they have the same style. At that time, a lot of layering, dancers layer. So, wow, they have a similar style and of dressing. I was getting very confused. This went on for a good 5-10 minutes where I'm looking at the back of this person, trying to sort out who they are because they were standing completely still. So they weren't turning or anything. And then I moved. Guess what happened? The person moved too. I had been looking at my own back for 5 to 10 minutes, completely unaware. Didn't recognize it at all, other than it seemed to dress similarly. And again, it was this wild experience of looking at someone else with complete objectivity. How to get that clarity without the ego and the attachments and the fears all interfering, how to have that clarity. And I think once we start to develop that, we're actually less interested or more compassionate. If we happen to be looking at others, we're really not interested in, because the more that we get to understand the self, the more we certainly have that empathy for others. But I remember just that feeling of completely realizing I have blind spots. And when we talk about the back of the body, it is a metaphor for spirituality. Most people are completely unaware of what's going on in the back of their body. This is a classic issue that comes up in training because our senses are in the front. And very often, not for everyone, but for many fitness training can be very image oriented. So they're just focusing on the front. So they do incredible development of the front. The back is the second, very, very ignored. And of course, the most ignored is the deep. It's completely invisible, right? So this looks good. I'm asymmetrical. My back is not equally developed, and I have no idea what's going on with my core. So this can happen as well in spirituality. As I come in and I'm dressed in the right clothes and I've got a soft voice, and when I'm sitting in yoga, I really look like I'm meditating, like seriously. I've got the open-eyed, everything's going well. This is the front. This is the image, right? And I can spend a lot of time, and it can get very subtle. We say there's royal forms of this. So I'm checking myself. I am checking myself and I'm correcting myself, but on a very superficial level. So ego's happy. It can continue to thrive nicely. And meanwhile, I feel that I'm checking and changing, but I'm doing it on quite a surface or front level, if you will. And then maybe I get injured, which will happen if I'm training in an imbalanced way. I will get injured. So the same can happen spiritually. I suddenly find I am reacting or feel hurt. Now, if I'm smart, when we're physically training, if we become injured, some people say, oh, it's the equipment or it was the trainer. They blame all sorts of stuff. But if they're really going anywhere with this, they might say, I think I need to change my training. I think I'm missing something. So they start to look at more balanced training. So this can happen spiritually too. I feel hurt or affected or reactive about something. I can take that as a signal that I'm neglecting part of what I'm doing. I'm being neglectful. I'm just focusing on the image, right? Because ego just got hit. So, and it was quite content how things were going along. I was very good looking spiritual student. I did everything right. And so ego's happy, I'm happy. And then I get hurt by something because ego is still quite vibrant. That's a sign. Okay, I need to really look at what's going on behind the scenes, the back. And that's good. And then I keep going along, and yes, now I'm really on fire. I'm really moving along nicely. And then again, a crisis quite deep happens, and it's telling me you're ignoring the deep stuff. And the term Olson scars was used for them, ignoring the deep stuff and being able to look at the self with so much clarity. In fitness, it's quite challenging for souls to be able to check. I mean, some cannot check, even the body awareness is initially very low, but to be able to check at a deep level with the deep muscles. So we're talking about, obliques, etc., transverse abdominis, the extensors. It's difficult for souls to check what's going on physically at a deep level. So it's very difficult to change. I remember taking, it was in Montreal, so there was some language things as well going on, but it was a Pilates class, and Pilates is so well known for focusing on the deep. So it doesn't really go into image at all. It really wants to focus on the deep, and it's largely injured souls physically have a physical injury that are doing it. And the awareness is so high, like souls are just becoming so still and quiet and focused to really detect what is going on with alignment. It feels like you've entered a meditation studio. The level of introversion, internal checking is so high in these mind-body disciplines. And this is really on a physical level. This is still quite tactile. It's difficult for souls. So if I was to ask you right now, because I assume that all of you are seated, but if you're lying down, it works well too. Are you aware of what's going on with the physical alignment of the body? Take a moment to go in there and check what's going on. And a good place to start, because you may say, what am I checking for? Is there any subtle or obvious pain anywhere in the body right now? Is it okay? Because that's usually a good place to go, that something's a little bit off in my alignment. So that I could be checking for. But as we work with it more and more, we can, without the pain, we can know what's going on. Where are all the bones located? What's happening in the body? How is the alignment? And as I check, do I know what change needs to happen? Do I know how to align the body if it's off? This has become a huge story physically right now, because souls are sitting more than they've ever sat before. Sitting is a killer to the body. It was not built to be still in that particular configuration for long periods of time. So we tune out to the pain. It's sending signals, but we're completely tuning it out. And so we're killing awareness. So to be able, just on that deep level, what's going on? Like I can feel that I am hyperextending my SI joint. I can feel that. It's a huge one for me. So, what's going on? What's going on with my shoulder girdle? This is just on a physical level. Can I check? And do I know what changes need to happen? Do I have the power? That is the wisdom and the mastery to be able to correct just physically. And so when we get to spirituality, it gets very interesting when we talk about the deep. It requires so much wisdom and mastery and patience. That we talk about this idea of I am a soul, and how I, the soul, function. How I function when I'm healthy, how I function when I'm not healthy, what that looks like. There is an alignment for the soul, and it's called awareness of being a soul or soul consciousness. This is a healthy alignment for the soul. And then if I forget I'm a soul, that's then I'm out of alignment. So that's always where we go to first. Nora.
It's just interesting on a physical level. I'm sure that you're cueing people to see if they know if they're actually having the right alignment.
Yeah.
And I know that's already a challenge.
Yeah.
And even for me, when someone's cueing on a physical level, I don't even know if I know exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
I can imagine on the spiritual level, you know, if we really, again, know what we're doing. Right.
I had a fascinating conversation about this, because this can break down in so many ways. The idea of getting directions and following those directions. But one of them is just listening, because every word that I've probably spoken now is hitting different experiences for each of you. So it was this fascinating conversation yesterday where I was on a team and we had to make some image choices. And it was luckily these are mature souls I'm with, so no one was offended and we could have a really, really good conversation. But we'd bring the image up and two would say, oh yeah, it's beautiful, it's perfect. The other one says, actually, it reminds me of I don't know, something, they'd say something, it reminds me of a very sterile, cold environment. Like, really? Like there was one image, this made me laugh, because I was on a team and all of them saying, oh, we love it, we love it. And I'm saying, really? I'm not sure if I can live with it. I don't know if I can responsibly put that out there. It was a hand like this with a sun behind it. And I finally had to say, look, you guys, this just feels like salvation or church or fundamentalist. You know, it had that, Jesus would always come into my head when I said this thing. And all the rest were like, yeah, no, it's beautiful. I'm like, it keeps having this where it's so, communication is a problem, whether it's visual or verbal, because it's triggering so much. And someone shared something yesterday that I found fascinating. So we have, and I couldn't believe they brought it up, I hadn't thought it, but it had to do with, in spirituality, every time that we're sharing spiritual information with the intention of the soul taking it and starting to assess what's going on inside, almost every word that we speak, the key ones, already have connotations. They hear the word soul, they hear the word God, they hear the word effort, they all have connotations. Meditation. It's not clean. Meditation, it's not clean. So I have no idea what's firing inside the soul. So in this particular situation, they were talking about a beautiful commentary tape that existed, that was created by one of our very gifted students in Australia, Carmen Warrington. And she is a beautiful, does beautiful commentary, sings as well. So this CD was called God, and it was the first CD out of the West that had commentaries about God as understood by the Brahma Kumaris. And I remember I was just starting in knowledge, and I remember I would listen to that CD a lot, especially the last track on the CD. And on the last track, it's this voice, this beautiful whisper, as if God is speaking to you, saying, be with me, be with me. Very, very sweet and loving. But what we were sharing, and they've had to stop using it, is that if anyone's had, forgive me for the strong language, any history of abuse, it is a very disturbing CD track. Now, it didn't have that experience for me, but that style of voice, that whispering, can be quite disturbing to some folks, depending. So when you give a cue of correction, for the soul even to listen in a clean way and catch the message as it was intended is a challenge, let alone apply it to themselves with some wisdom or awareness. The whole thing has so many areas of breakdown. So yeah.
Where does spiritual power play a role in this, in terms of being able to transfer your experience that is, a sense of the realness of oneself, so that
Yeah.
someone else can feel that about themselves.
So there is a story, not a story, and I don't know if I have it in here. I don't know if I can find it, but in essence, and Nora knows this, so she'll correct me if I'm wrong. But it was one of the cards that we give out whenever it's Didi Manmohini Day. I have them. So Didi Manmohini was the first administrator, if you will, or head of the spiritual head or trustee, was really sort of Mama and Brahma. And when they transitioned, then two other souls were put in the position of spiritual head, and Didi Manmohini was one of them. And there's one card, I'm trying to see if I can find it. This one. I may have to just do it from memory. But in this one, it's Daddy Janki sharing. And Daddy Janki was sharing, I just don't know what's going on here, because I will share, so much in spiritual knowledge, and I don't get the same results as Didi does. Didi hardly does anything. She says a few words, and then all of these souls are completely dedicated to uplifting themselves, And I think that was, and of course it's not the case. Daddy Janki was also very powerful. But I think what she was drawing our attention to was the cleanest form of communication, which is least likely, actually impossible to misinterpret. And that's vibration. It's impossible to misinterpret vibration. It's direct soul to soul. And that was, Didi was a real specialist in that sort of, this is pure spiritual power. We call it the power of purity. So, one way we can understand this is if someone speaks, what's the sincerity, what's the vibration behind their speaking? We know that have so much impact. Sometimes we say charisma, whatever the case, so much impact. It just directly hits the target. So it's really on the side of when communicating to really check the sincerity with which they're speaking, that vibration. And on the other side, I need to keep cleaning my receptors so I can catch that and not get confused by the words, not get caught up in the words. It's a bit like a flower with a fragrance, and I can get very pulled into the visual aspects of the flower. I want to take the fragrance. So I need to improve. I keep getting distracted, so I need to improve my capacity to catch the subtle. And that's a huge thing that spirituality works with. And again, this is what we notice in physical fitness, is that if souls are interested in that subtle looking at the self, they don't fear it, they want to do it because they know it's the basis of change, then they will put themselves in classes or situations where they can improve that subtle sensitivity. And you begin to see it's quite remarkable. I was working with a soul earlier today, and as we were working in the studio on really subtle stuff that we're positive no one would be interested in, and meanwhile out on the weight floor they're all lifting the big weights and all this sort of thing. And we were chatting, and she said, "Yeah, no, I could lift. I've done weight lifting with trainers, and it's very easy. It is. She's a very strong, very strong." And she says, "Yeah, it comes easy, but somehow it's not quite fulfilling what I'm looking for in terms of progress." She really hungers for that, to develop that subtlety. That has to be an interest of the soul. Definitely an interest if you're going into spiritual study. I have to be interested. There's no show. It's all very incognito. It's not outcome focused or showy or anything, but it needs to be satisfying in its own right. So the last 10 minutes together, we were talking about how we love to just do these strange things that probably other people would look at us sideways, but it's creating this, developing our sensitivity to the subtle aspects of how the body moves. And you can just tell in a class who does that who has that awareness and who does not. by how they're using the body. You can tell in a second. And it's a very personal interest. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's essential if you're coming into a spiritual practice to have an interest in refining the sensitivity to the subtle, because the materials used to do that, again, there's no show. I mean, you can make a show of it if you want to, but it doesn't mean I'm progressing, right? So it's very, very subtle and incognito. So I want to look more at what vibration I'm putting out, but also am I able to catch that subtlety, so that I can get beyond those other connotations that the words might fire. So when you hear the word effort, do I still have a very, what we might say, gross or almost immature understanding of effort? Or do I have a more subtle understanding of what effort means? Because it will make a big difference in self-correction. Absolutely. I cannot find it. Save my life.
You can get you.
Sorry. Anyways, I'm looking at the time, so I'm going to stop here. We could go on for days. Oh, really? Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is speciality of Didi. She was a powerful yogi. Daddy Janki was very good at speaking knowledge. So Daddy Janki was administrator of the organization. A little bit later, she became the spiritual head. Daddy Janki was very good at speaking knowledge, and she would speak for 1 or 2 hours to people. But Didi Manmohini was not one for giving classes. She would meet people for 5 minutes, but her drishti, what she was communicating through vision, was so powerful that she would take people into an experience. People from all different paths and walks of life. Daddy Janki wondered, what does she do? I spoke to the same souls for so many hours, and they were not able to experience as much as when they were with Didi. And I love this for a couple of reasons. That obviously it's pointing to cutting to the chase, which would be so helpful. But I always think, wow, what kind of work did Didi do on herself to be able to give that experience? Like how much checking and changing she did on herself to be that clean an instrument, that powerful an instrument. We all want to be a benevolent presence in the world. And we think a lot about doing things and gestures, but we have a saying, charity begins at home. To be a really powerful, benevolent force in the world, I need to benefit the self first. I need to check and change the self, bring out the best in the self first. The rest comes automatically. Again, ego might have me looking outwards of how I can appear to be a very kind, giving person. But internally, if I'm looking, do I still get disturbed? Am I selective and conditional in my kindness? Am I reactive? Am I impatient? Do I have certain expectations around my giving? These are all signs that it's not really coming from a powerful place, and it won't have long-term impact. So what kind of checking and changing did Didi do on herself such that, we saw these results, and we see the souls who were sustained by Didi Mohini. Of course, Mohini Didi is one of them. And so we can see the long-term results of what she was doing. And that to me just suggests, wow, the correction, the transformation she did on herself to be that powerful and benevolent a presence for others is remarkable and inspiring. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's, because otherwise I'm doing a Daddy Janki, I'm going on for 1 or 2 hours. See if there's anything anyone wants to share or ask before we conclude with a reflection.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Anne, hi.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I was trying to find some place to go. I don't know what kind of group this is. I'm just what's it called? Just watch I was just looking for something spiritual videos, or I don't know, I'm just interested in that subject. Um
Excellent. So
so
what
I
I'm going
found this, but I don't know, maybe it's too late.
No, you're not too late. What I am going to do, if I say your name, I will get it wrong. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the chat box an email address for you,
Okay.
if that's okay. And we can follow up with you of what we do and what this is about and some other, if you're looking for videos, I think we can definitely help you out. So I'm just putting an email address in the chat box. Hopefully you see it there.
I do.
Okay, if you want to record that, and please drop us a line, and then we can follow up with you with all the resources, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But we're
Thank
happy
you.
that you dropped in. Thank you. Yeah, it probably seems a little odd parachuting into the middle of all of this. What is going on?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, yes, totally. Is there anyone else who wanted to share?
I had a question. What we were sharing with spiritual vibration. We've had quite a few interviews of timing, and lots of discussions about timing. In terms of the impact of spiritual vibration, is that also in terms of the timing of a soul, in terms of how they're receptive they are? Because I don't know if that's a conscious thing in terms of someone having very powerful presence and someone else, and how that can affect them.
I personally feel, this is completely my own feeling on it, and it might change tomorrow, who knows, but that a very clean, pure vibration will have an effect on every single soul. So imagine a variety of seeds. Some germinate instantly, some take a little time. The vibration will affect every seed when it actually something seems to happen. That will vary for every soul, but there will be an impact on every soul. And if the one who is transmitting that vibration, obviously if they're powerful, they would have a very patient attitude. We so often look for the result or impact of what we're doing. And again, it comes into image. It just happens over and over. The numbers, the reactions, did they like it? How many likes and all this crazy stuff. And the next day they could be completely gone. Like it's got nothing to do. But the invisible, we're back to the subtle, the deep. The more subtle it is, the more honest it is, the more true it is. It's easier to come into deception as we float more and more to the surface. Vibration is a very honest form of communication, and it will definitely touch, for better or worse. It will touch. We've seen it happening for the last 2 years. I mean, most have been unaware, but collectively with our anxiety and worry and concern and distress and frustration, we have collectively been creating a global vibration. So you could tell on any given day. We're transmitting from Calgary right now. And I remember in particular those days when we would receive a message from the government that we're going into lockdown again. And you could feel the vibration get so heavy because you can't fake this, for better or worse. Everyone was transmitting this vibe of just incredible disappointment and fear and anxiety, uncertainty, and collectively. And it was tangible, like clouds or something. It was so tangible, which means we were affecting each other. Unless you were aware of what was going on and was generating or connected to a source of a different vibration, you were going to be colored by that. And it would start to wear you down. It would start to affect your decisions and choices and energy. And you may not even be aware that that was happening, but it would affect. So this idea of vibration or atmosphere is such an honest form. Our attitudes create it. And so we have to be able to check those really honestly. So shall we have a short reflection? A midget one. Here we go. I once heard a definition of honesty. It's very beautiful, very powerful. That whatever is going on, whether it's outside or inside, emotions raging, whatever is going on, honesty means there's always some small part of me observing in a caring but neutral way. A part of me that stays intact. And this connects me to who I really am. The small, small part of the self that's observing everything else going on in a calm, neutral, and caring way. That's the seed of pure awareness. I nurture that seed with every experience I have of being a soul. That I am a spiritual being operating through this body. I travel through time. I go through changes. I move away from my authentic state, so far away that I begin to miss myself. That spiritual longing to be real again. But now I've moved so far away, it will require so much honesty and patience and clarity to get back. I will get back. But I have to keep having that small piece of me watching what I'm doing. So I don't get detoured. I don't lose hope. I don't develop doubt. I don't get distracted. Always connected to the memory of my original self. What I am returning to. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining today. We did put the email address in the chat box if anyone's new to this, and we encourage you, Om Shanti Pauline, we encourage you to be in touch if there's any questions or more information needed. So thank you for joining, and I look forward to the next time. I think next time it's going to be story time. Thank you so much. I think it's story time next time. So we'll see what happens there. Have a wonderful day and take care. Om Shanti.